All right. It's my pleasure to introduce Ann Hamilton. She's the founder and executive director of the Survivorship Collective. She's a cancer survivor as well and an advocate for the cancer community, a former litigator, and a member of the Psychedelic Bar Association. And she has experience working in government, nonprofits, higher education, and she's a former professor at USC's School of Cinematic Arts. She's a certified mediator and has a JD from Yale Law School and a master's degree in philosophy from Stanford. She's a graduate of Notre Dame and the American Film Institute, and she's currently coming to us from Los Angeles. Thank you so much, Anne, for joining us, and I'll let you take it from here.
Thanks so much, Brooks. And I'm so excited to be here. Thanks to Breast Friends and all of you guys for showing up tonight. I think somebody else just joined. That's okay. Anyway, so yeah, I'm the executive director of the Survivorship Collective, and you can find our website at survivorshipcollective.com, and we can put it in the chat. But I started the organization about a year and a half ago because as a breast cancer survivor, I found that after treatment and in the process of dealing with survivorship and recurrence fears, a lot of the sort of more conventional ways of dealing with depression and anxiety weren't cutting it for me. So I was very fortunate to have access to a psilocybin experience, and it really made my life significantly better when other things weren't working. But it was an underground situation, which I do not recommend and I think is quite dangerous. So I didn't tell anybody else about it. And then through the process of meeting other survivors and a mutual friend of Brooks and mine, I realized that a lot of people had had similar experiences, but weren't talking about it. And so I thought there must be a nonprofit that deals with connecting cancer patients and survivors to psychedelics, because the whole reason psychedelics is having a renaissance is because of cancer survivors and a 2010 study at Johns Hopkins, but it turns out there wasn't one. And so we decided to form one, me and my board. It's myself, and I'm a cancer survivor. I had stage 3C breast cancer about 5 years ago. And I'm also BRCA positive. Another one of our board members is Indigenous and has a family history of working with plant medicines. She's from Mexico. And then our third founding board member has a metastatic breast cancer, breast to bone cancer. We formed this organization about a year and a half ago, and we are doing a pilot retreat in Oregon in May, and we're going to be releasing or launching the application for that pilot tomorrow, which is why we wanted to talk to you tonight. So that's the reason I'm here tonight. And it's so I'm going to tell you a bit about what we do. I'll talk about the retreat a little bit, and then we'll kind of open it up to questions. As Brooke said, I'm a former litigator. I don't practice law anymore, although I'm a member of the bar. What I do right now is policy-related advocacy for cancer survivors and psychedelics. So I'll be appearing in Washington to talk about policy related to federal laws regarding palliative care and cancer. So that's something I'll be doing in February. I'm also involved with a Ninth Circuit litigation proceeding that is trying to get the Right to Try Act to cover people with cancer so that we would have an exception for us. So that's the kind of stuff that we do other than programming. But the programming itself is kind of at the heart of what I really care about. There might be a clinical trial in Oregon, which is part of our programming that we are raising money for right now, and that would be for breast cancer survivors. But then there's also the programming that is not related to a clinical trial, and that is what I'm here to talk to you about tonight. The pilot retreat it's going to be for 8 breast cancer survivors. And the idea is we want to use this process of a pilot to design future retreats. And so the pilot will be free. It will be completely paid for, except for getting to the actual location. But once you're there, we'll be taking care of everything, except for, according to Oregon state law, you have to buy the mushrooms yourselves. I think it's about $40, but that's the only thing that you'd have to pay for once you land at Fernlove, which is a retreat center. It's in a log cabin in the middle of 30 acres of woods. It's about 45 minutes outside of Portland. So I think I'm going to go into the actual sort of day by day plan from the application process to the end of the retreat. But before I do that, I wanted to open this up to any questions anybody might have about what I've said so far. And if there aren't any, I'll just continue. Awesome. Okay, great. So the application will go live tomorrow. It will be due on February 2nd, and people will be notified by the beginning of March about whether they've been selected. It'll be 8 participants, and then we'll have 3 people on the wait list. So that's the plan. If you are selected, wonderful. If you aren't selected, it's okay too, because we are also going to be having other retreats down the road. So please apply, even though it's only 8 spots, please apply, because people who apply to this round will have priority for the second retreat, which is, I think, going to be probably in August. And we're going to gauge interest based on how many people apply for the pilot. But the pilot process is like this. So if you're selected, we will do an intake with a licensed facilitator. Her name is Claudia Cuentas. She works out of the Cora Center, and she's really special in this field because she's the only, she runs the only Indigenous-based service center in Oregon, which is called the Cora Center. We won't be actually going to the Cora Center because it's in the middle of Portland, but we're going to take the people from the Cora Center and bring them into the woods because we really want to do this in nature, and that's kind of the plan for us. So you'll do an intake with her, and based on that intake, you might do a medical screening with a doctor in Portland, and that I think that has to be in person, but not everybody will have to do that. And that's also paid for by us, just to make sure everything's safe. And then the process is we'll do a group coaching session to sort of tell you guys what's going to be happening and also prepare you with this thing called set and setting. And then there'll be 2 individual coaching sessions to prepare for the retreat. The retreat itself will be from the 8th to the 11th of May. People will kind of land on the first day and kind of get used to where we are. There will be shared rooms because we're trying to maximize the amount of people who can go. So you'll probably be sharing a room with 1 or 2 other people. And then we'll do a sound bath and sort of like a somatic session in the evening. The second day will be nature-based. So we won't be doing any intense hiking, but we'll do a nature meditation, maybe some forest bathing in the morning. And then the psilocybin session will be in the afternoon. And again, it is a service center, and we'll have 2 facilitators there with us, according to state law. That's what's required. And then in the evening, it'll be dinner, and then probably people want to go to bed and just sort of process that day. The 10th will be a full day of integration. In the morning, there'll be a Qigong sort of somatic body experience where you'll be integrating without talking about the experience. In the afternoon, will be a talking session for anybody who wants to share, and that'll be in nature as well. And then the last day will be a closing, ceremony, and then everybody will go home. And then after that, there will be 2 sessions of coaching sessions that are individual and 1 group session, and then optional meetings beyond that. So yeah, that's pretty much the plan. I'm super excited to partner with you guys because you are based in Oregon, and Oregon is the only state where you can actually do this. In Colorado, there are some wonderful programs being brought out, but it's not as well structured yet. So this is really like the way I think people can have access to this in a safe way. And that's not underground. So we want to make sure people are taken care of. But I'll stop there. I've said a lot. And I'd love to know if you guys have any questions and just hear from you.
I know that this has been done with other populations. Can you talk a little bit about that and like how that's gone as far as like was it with veterans? Is that correct?
Yes. So there are actually 3 veterans groups that have been doing something like this for the past 3 years, maybe a bit more. One of them is called Heroic Hearts. They're kind of the big one. They're the ones that testify before Congress and have most of the attention. And Jesse Gould, who's the head of Heroic Hearts, is one of our advisors. So he's been helping us along the way. That's wonderful for veterans are an amazing group of people who've been really at the forefront of making sure that that the communities that need this medicine, that their voices are heard. And we're really kind of following in their footsteps in a lot of ways. Like we're going to be going to places that they've been going to. Although I think Fern Love, I think because they just opened, we will actually beat them to it, which is kind of great. But we are a little bit different because a lot of what they do is send people abroad, like to Mexico and to Peru, which is wonderful. But having gone to places like that and done research, I think because we are I would say a vulnerable community for a lot of reasons, especially as women, and because we have medical needs that veterans don't have, I feel much more comfortable having this based in Oregon, which is why we chose to do it only in Oregon right now. Uh, and our sessions are also going to be a little bit smaller. So they usually have 12 people. 8 is what we're going to be doing because we want to make sure everybody has individual attention and also that the group is really cohesive. So that's how it's a little bit different. And we're also relatively new. So we are raising funding for this. If you guys are interested in talking about that, we can talk more about it. But we're really, I think we'll probably be where they're at in about 2 or 3 years in terms of the frequency of retreats, hopefully.
Um, and I have a question about like for those of us who have mental health diagnoses and are taking like antidepressants or anti-anxiety, is that like, does that screen us out, or are there considerations like that are being made around like prescription psychotropic medication?
Yes, so I'm not a doctor and I don't know the intricacies of contraindications, but the whole point of having an intake and a medical screening is to make sure that it is safe and to answer those questions. So that's a step along the way. I don't know, I don't know your situation, but sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it just means that your experience will be a little bit milder. Like it kind of depends on the situation, but we will not allow anybody to participate where a medical professional says it's unsafe. That's just
Okay.
the reality.
Yeah. Thanks.
Tamara, you raised your hand.
Thank you. Yeah. And then I took it up and down like 12 times because I couldn't figure out the buttons. Thank you. And it's so wonderful to hear you speak. And I wanted to thank you for being here. I wondered if you were comfortable sharing a little bit about your experience and how it helped you, even though it was
Sure, yeah.
underground and you wouldn't recommend it. Like, obviously, there was benefit there for you enough to be here now and doing this work. So if you could talk about it, it'd be super great.
Of course, yeah. Again, like I'm an attorney. I do not think anybody should be doing anything illegal. It is also very unsafe as a woman to be going underground and being. I'm just going to say this as a caveat, right? Like it's really. I had an experience with a woman and she was lovely, but part of what psychedelics do, just generally, not just psilocybin, is they make you very suggestible in certain circumstances. They make you very open to changing your mind about different things, which is very therapeutic in the right setting. But you can imagine in the wrong setting with the wrong person, it can also be very dangerous, right? So that's why underground is bad. It's not because psychedelics are bad, it's because people are. And we want to make sure people are protected, right? My experience, so I think the most helpful thing is to understand what I was like before and what I was like after. I can tell you about the experience itself, and I will a little bit. But what's funny, I've talked to a lot of people about their experiences over the past year and a half, and hearing about somebody else's psychedelic experience is kind of like hearing about their dreams. Like you have to really care about the person to have it matter. So, and you guys don't know me yet. So, but what I will say is, before, my treatment happened in mostly 2018. And then I had a brief, I had a little bit of 2019 before the pandemic hit where I was kind of getting back to normal. And then 2020 happened and it was a very hard time, especially I think that 2 or 3 year part right after survivorship was a very hard time for a lot of people to really get used to life after, because it's very different, as you know. And I was depressed and I had a lot of anxiety. I was on Wellbutrin. But whenever I thought about the future, my thoughts got really dangerous. Like I wasn't suicidal. I didn't have a plan, but I was really close to it. I'll just say that I was really close to it. And if I thought about the future too much, I was afraid I might hurt myself. And I just didn't know what to do. And I kept like talking to my psychologist about it. And, I had these fears of recurrence, which are anxiety, but also just generally like, how do I build a life or fall in love or, I don't know, invest in anything if it's going to come back. I couldn't really get past that, even though I was trying everything that was available. And then luckily I was put in touch with somebody, and that went well. During the session itself, the actual thing that happened in my brain was I watched, this sounds scary, but it was actually wonderful. I watched my fear happen. I watched myself die. And it was amazing because the guide was very good. And she was like, how does it make you feel? Because I watched myself grow old and die. She's like, how does it make you feel? And I was like, it's such a relief to know what it feels like because it's not scary at all. And then afterwards, I was able to buy a house, fall in love. Like, I'd like to have children. Like, I was able to sort of integrate death in a way that wasn't scary anymore. So that, I mean, I worry about my parents and stuff if something happens to me, but it's not a deep fear. It's an okay, like, it's okay. Whatever happens, I'm okay with it, is kind of how my brain has been ever since, to be honest. It sounds scary, but in the right hands with the right people, the whole point is to see what's scary and integrate it and absorb it in a way that is tranquil and allows you to move on, but also have it be an authentic part of your life. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you.
Great. I think we have Michelle who has a question.
Actually, I was just going to offer an answer to the question on contraindications and SSRIs. So for all of you who don't know me, hi, my name's Michelle. I actually serve on the board of directors for Breast Friends, and I'm also a legal licensed psilocybin facilitator here in Oregon and have my own practice and retreat business. So I just wanted to say I see clients all the time who are on SSRIs, who are on Adderall, who are on a plethora of prescription drugs. And every legal psilocybin center, including Fern Love, has a protocol for, going through any kind of medications or anything that you may be on, and, having that conversation with your facilitator, with a doctor if necessary. But many people have beautiful experiences who are on SSRIs. Typically, what we do is we will kind of start the baseline of your dose at a higher level than we would somebody that was not on an SSRI or any kind of, if there's any kind of other, drug contraindication. So just wanted to offer that answer for all of you all. So since I do it every day with clients. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'll also mention that Michelle works with if people don't want to engage with like a group setting, Michelle's a great person to talk to too. So
thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, and it looks like Nicola has a question.
Hi, yeah. Thank you for doing this, by the way. I think it's so fascinating. You had said that in the retreat, the 10th is sort of designated for reintegration and processing. What does that look like as a process? And is it like in a group or is it individual? Like, how does that work?
Right. Great question. It will actually be run by a facilitator as well, who's trained to do this. But usually there's a somatic element to it and then a group session talking about the experience. So this is a very group-based retreat. If people want to have time to themselves, obviously they're welcome to go back to their rooms and have time to themselves as well. It's a very individual experience, but there'll be a group integration process in the afternoon where we'll be sitting in a group and talking about intention and how we're going to kind of go back into the world and what we've what's come out of it. Yeah.
I had a question of how many facilitators or just about how many other people other than the participants will be around.
Right. So I'll be there. I'm the executive director, kind of running things in the background, making sure people are fed. By the way, there'll be organic food that'll be cooked on site. So that's going to be really great. And we'll also take into account people's dietary needs. So it'll be myself. The other important people who will be there are the facilitators themselves. So Claudia Coentis will be there on the second day, the whole day, and then probably part of the third day. So second day will be the psilocybin actual ceremony, and the third day will be the integration. There'll be a second facilitator as well because legally, given the dosage we'll be using, we need to have the ratio needs to be one facilitator to 4 people, and there'll be 8 of us, 8 of you guys. I won't be participating because I'll be running things. And then we're also gonna have people coming in, kind of like day players, as we call it in Hollywood, like coming in to help with like Qigong, like a Qigong specialist. And if we can find someone to offer massage, we're probably going to do that as well, depending on people's interest in that. As well as sound bath the first evening. So we'll be bringing in like, you know, people who are really good at those healing modalities to come in for 3 or 4 hours to work with us and then have a meal with us and then go. But they'll just be there for that session.
Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome, guys. Thanks for being here. It means a lot to me, and I'm so excited about getting to meet you guys in Oregon. So it's you're very lucky to be there too. California is not nearly as open to this yet. So I envy you for being there.
So, and I have a question. What's the criteria for choosing who's going to be going on the retreat, or do you even know yet?
Right now, we're just kind of interested in seeing who's going to apply, and then we're going to probably base it on a lot of different factors. Honestly, like we're going to have our board members look at all the applications. But like I said, like people who apply to this pilot, if they're not selected, they'll be first in line for the next one. Right now, it's just breast cancer survivors. We're only opening it to breast cancer survivors, but down the road, what I'd like to do is sort of curate groups based on the needs of that group so that they're somewhat similar, right?
Yeah.
So, but for these first groups, because we're growing and we're going to be rolling this out really slowly because we want to make sure we're not getting ahead of ourselves and we're learning as we go. The people who apply are going to have, a pretty good chance of just being in one of the earlier ones. Yeah. But as you know, different people have different needs in the community, in our community itself, the breast cancer community itself. It also, what Heroic Hearts does, which I think is really wonderful now that they're a bit, larger, is they sometimes have couples retreats too, or partner retreats. And that would be something that we'd like to do down the road, probably in 2026. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Good. Glad you think so.
Well, for me, any of this kind of stuff sounds really good. And I was looking into doing a psilocybin journey at the beginning of last year, I think. But then I had some health issues, and then I got breast cancer, and now the issues I was dealing with are just skyrocketing. And I'm like, I got to deal somehow. And traditional stuff just isn't cutting it. They say, oh, here's a cancer counselor you can have for your breast cancer. He's a man. I'm like, gee, thanks. He does.
I've had a similar experience. Yeah.
Yeah, but
I can relate to that.
Like, thank you.
Yeah.
So,
and if I could speak to that too, I think the community itself, like one of the things I've learned by watching other groups is the psilocybin experience is one thing, and it's very important. But it's really that group cohesion and the group itself that creates the medicine. And so having a group experience it's a very different thing. And it's also the way traditionally it was done in Indigenous cultures. So we're kind of bringing that back into the way this is thought of and practiced, honestly. Yeah.
Love the community aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really important, right?
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, thank you.
I had another question as far as stage of cancer. Are you thinking of having a mixture for the pilot?
I would like that. Yeah. So it's definitely open to stage 4 patients as well, as long as they're stable and cleared by a medical professional, which is just, I think that's just common sense. And one of our board members is stage 4, and she's been stable for 5 years. So it's definitely important. I've noticed that, and this is something that I'm still definitely learning about, but I've noticed that the fears around death and dying, and also just anxiety and loss and grief and getting back into life, it doesn't really matter what stage you were diagnosed at. Like, that can be really acute, whether it's stage 1 or stage 3. Stage 4 obviously has different considerations, but I think the stage 4 people I know are the best teachers and the people I most want to be around. So, if they want to be there, I think it's always just like the best, absolutely best version of it. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know how to do the raise the hand thing. But
Hi, Rachel.
hi there. I guess I am interested in knowing more, like, what are the credentials of the folks that will be there? You said they're licensed. Sorry.
Yes, licensed facilities. So, and actually, I wonder if Michelle can talk more about the credentials and the training, because you're the expert.
Yeah, I could be happy to. Yeah, so in Oregon, the way it works in the legal program is we have 4 license types. There is the license for the manufacturer. So those are the people who grow the mushrooms. And then we have a license for the labs. The labs do the testing of the mushrooms and the products to make sure that they're safe. But we also, Anne and I actually met earlier today, and so sorry, this is a repeat for Anne, but one of the things I really enjoy about working in this legal model is our dosing is much more accurate and we're much more able to dial in, a correct dose per person, which is a little different than in the underground, because in the underground, they're only able to really go by weight of the mushroom. And as you probably can guess, a living organism plant is, plant A might not be equal to plant B, even if they weigh the same. And so a lot of times in the underground, it's a bit of a crapshoot in getting the dosing right for people, just because simply we don't know how that mushroom is going to work. Whereas with the licensing and the lab testing, we're really able to say, this mushroom type A is more potent than mushroom type B. So basically, we're testing for potency rather than weight. And then the third license is the actual facility where it's done. That's Fern Love in this instance. And those, all of those licenses all these licenses, you have to go through, different processes depending on what you're doing. For the facilitators, we all had to go through a training program. All of those training programs had to be approved by HEC, which is the higher education. I forget what the C stand for, but it's the higher education board or whatever that does the governing over, content and things of that nature. And then Oregon Health Authority, which is the governing body over the entire psilocybin program in Oregon, have to also approve the training. So all of us had to go through extensive hours of training, which included like a practicum training of learning to work with the medicine. And then we also have to go through an exam process through the OHA. And then once you complete your exam and have a passing grade on that exam, then you got to go through the application process of, actually applying for your license. And there's, that's a bit of a bureaucratic process. But that is how we become licensed in the state of Oregon. Colorado's a little bit different. So it'll be interesting to see, the differences between different states as they come on board. But that is how it works in Oregon. And then we have to renew our license every year, just like any other kind of professional license.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and actually starting in 2026, they just changed some of the rules for facilitators starting in 2026. In order to maintain our license, we have to also have continued education. I can't remember, don't ask me the exact number of hours, but so many hours per year we have to, have continuing education as well. So I think that's a move in the right direction as well for facilitators, so that we can stay up to date on all the latest and greatest research and things that are happening.
Is there a psychological element there, like having a psychotherapist or something of that nature?
No, in fact, even so, as a facilitator, we're not allowed technically to give any kind of directive advice or directive communication while people are under the influence of psilocybin. So even folks like in my training cohort, for instance, I had a handful of therapists who were becoming licensed. There were two physicians in my training cohort, a nurse. But they're actually not allowed to practice under both licenses at the same time. So it's basically like if I'm your therapist, I can do therapy with you in preparation, and I can do therapy with you in integration, but I'm not allowed to wear that hat during your psilocybin session. And different facilitators, we all work differently. Uh, so, like in my practice, I take my lead from my clients during their session, and we talk through that, in our preparation. But every client's different. Some people want to interact a lot with you during a session, and some don't. It's a very personal inward journey. And so I always take my lead off every client based on kind of what they need from me. And really, as a facilitator, our role is just, how I see my role is I'm like the supporting actress. You're the main actor. And I'm really there just to help keep you safe. Make sure that in preparation and in the relationship leading up to the actual administration of the mushrooms, my number one goal is to establish safety and trust, because this is a very vulnerable process. And if you're not feeling safe, then it's not gonna bring you what you're hoping for. In fact, I've actually turned down some clients when I didn't feel safe with them, because I figure if I don't feel safe, then they're not going to feel safe. And then it's just really a waste of everybody's time and money and energy, right? So typically, most of us try to be there when you need us and kind of retreat into the background when you don't.
Thank you. And by the way, Michelle will be there at the retreat on the day of facilitation as well. So
Yes.
Thanks, Michelle.
I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited.
But also, Rachel, I think that's a really good question, and that makes me think more about the other kinds of questions we should be asking people, because I do think if you're going to be engaging with this, you should have some kind of support system that might include a therapist outside of this, so you can go back to that person. We have on our board a psychotherapist who specializes in oncology, but she's licensed in California, not in Oregon. So she can work with people in California, not in Oregon. But that's a really good point that you bring up, and thank you for that, because it would be, I think it is important to have that sort of safety net, like you were saying, to go back to. But it doesn't, I think, as Michelle was saying, it doesn't really make sense to do that at the actual location itself.
Yeah, and I would just add, I've had clients in the past where their therapist joins our preparation call, or at least part of it. And it's kind of a team effort, right? Because it's like they hand off their client to me, I take them on a journey, and then I hand them back, kind of, in a way. And so I love doing that when therapists are willing to, because I think it's just nice to be able to have that partnership and collaboration and support the individual's needs the best way we can as a team. So yeah, it's done a lot.
Awesome. Thank you. That does make a lot of sense.
Thank you, Michelle and Anne. Nicola had another question.
Yeah, hi, thanks. When you were talking, Michelle, actually about like the preparation beforehand, like the day of integration, or not integration, I don't know. Sorry, I still have a cold, so my brain is slow here. But like the pre-day before you do like the ceremony, do you and like is there going to be stuff for us to do like beforehand that we should prep, or is it that you kind of come in and then like you're doing it right then and there?
Awesome, thank you. So I kind of went through the programming really quickly, and I'll sort of say it again because now it probably makes a bit more sense. So So the stages are basically three. There's the preparation, there's the actual retreat, and then there's the integration. The preparation is going to be remote, like sessions, right? But you're going to have two coaching calls that are going to be one-on-one with members of the community that are, ready to do this and can't, they're former, they're cancer patients, right? Or cancer survivors. So people who can help you get ready for it. And also with a facilitator, you'll have preparation sessions with a facilitator as well. So this is kind of what I call a wraparound. We do, because we're a nonprofit that specializes in working with people with cancer, we provide more around it than what is typically required. But it is required that you have an intake session with a facilitator, and you will be doing that as well. And I also, it's very important to have a follow-up session with that facilitator as well before you get to the actual location. So there'll be a lot of prep work and assignments. It's sort of the programming that we do that's specific to cancer and survivorship.
Great, thank you.
You'll be sick of us. You'll be talking to us so much. You'll be like, we just get to the retreat. Like, come on, guys. Why so much homework? But it'll be fun stuff too. Like, I think it's going to be very helpful and meaningful.
Thank you for your question, Nicola. And Tamara, did you have another question?
I did. Thank you. Michelle, I was curious what got you into this line of work?
Sure. My own experience is similar to Anne. I think we're approaching it from different angles, but I love that's what we need. We need a community of people doing different things with different roles. I myself was going through a lot of transition in my life, pretty burnt out after many years of corporate work at big companies, and going through a divorce, having back-to-back layoffs 2 years in a row. There was a lot going on. Lost my father and my grandfather in the same year. So all of this happened at the same time. And then my family and I moved from overseas to Portland in 2014. So it was just a lot between 2014 and 2019. And a friend of mine introduced me to psilocybin. I had never tried anything like that before. I was pretty goody two shoes most of my life. And it was somebody I trusted and really felt comfortable with. And I thought, yeah, okay, let's give this a try. And I didn't, it wasn't for any kind of I didn't have any real intention that first time that I tried it. To be honest, it was a little bit more of in a recreational kind of way. We were looking to have a nice evening together, but it wasn't for any particular reason. But after that first experience, we had a wonderful evening, and it opened something up for me. And I realized that there was more to this medicine than met the eye. And so I decided I wanted to dive deeper. And so over like a 3-year period, I probably did 5 or 6 journeys by myself for like my own personal healing. And then along the way, of course, was also following legislation here in Oregon with Measure 109 and following that closely and feeling like I wanted to be involved somehow. And then actually it was the Johns Hopkins research with terminally ill cancer patients that really kind of got me and pulled at my heartstrings because, as I mentioned, my stepfather died of prostate cancer in 2014. And it was just a hard time for the whole family. But I was living overseas at the time. I'm an only child. My mom was caring for sick people for like 5 or 6 years. She lost her mom, and then my grandfather, and then my father, all pretty close to each other. And so I watched my mom kind of really slip into pretty bad depression for a number of years. And it was just tough, it was tough on all of us. And I just realized when I discovered that research and saw the success they were having with these terminally ill cancer patients and coming to terms with their own mortality and their own, fear of death and all those things. I thought, how beautiful. I want to be part of that. Like, it sounds strange, but I would love to serve that community. I have yet to do that. Most of my clients are dealing with lots of heavy stuff, but I have not had anybody that's terminally ill so far. But I just think it's a beautiful gift that you could give somebody at that stage of their life to be able to shift your mindset around your death. It's the thing that we all share. We all have it in common. We all will die. We just don't know how or when. And so in a way, I see it as a chance for closure. I see it for, as a chance for coming to terms with things that you may have been struggling with for a lot of your life and finding closure with your loved ones. I think it'd be a really beautiful gift as well, in a way. A lot of us don't get that chance to say goodbye or to say the things that we wish we would have said, after somebody passes. And so I think if I can help families to reframe that, I would love to be part of that. Yeah. So that's kind of what got me into it. And I've been doing this. I launched my business in September of 2023, and it's like the best work of my life. I love it. Every time I have a client that has a breakthrough and finds, healing or forgiveness or some peace in their life, that's what I do it for. So, yeah.
And that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing
Yeah,
that.
and I think most facilitators feel the same way. So we all got into
I'm
it.
st-
Usually, yeah.
I'm starting at Intertrek next month, so
Oh,
I'm
congrats.
super excited. I have and
Yeah.
yeah, have had my own experiences post cancer, and yeah, so I want
Yeah.
everything to do with this body of work and love seeing people already in it. So thank
Yeah,
you.
awesome. Yeah, no, love that you're doing that for yourself.
I haven't been this excited like before cancer.
Yeah, no, I get exactly what you mean. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's most facilitators I meet, we all have our own personal healing stories, and then it's like when you find something that works, you want to like share it with everybody, like, oh my
Yes,
God.
yes. I'm like, everyone come join me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, it's really cool that you're doing that. I can't wait to have you, as a part of everything.
I'm like,
I
and I
think
want to come facilitate in a year from now. So like,
exactly. I think that would be
put it on the
wonderful.
calendar.
Yeah, and
And I
I just
also want to
also
work with terminally ill patients because we
yeah.
have my partner's stepfather is uh, dying from lung cancer, and it's he had done mushrooms back in the 70s. So I'm like, please go do this. And I'm trying to hook him up with, is it Alma? I think it is. Alma.
Alma became Cora. So the Cora Institute is what
Oh,
Alma
okay.
used to be.
Oh,
So
sorry.
yeah, they're
It's the national one because they're in Arizona.
oh, okay. I'm thinking of the wrong one. Interesting.
I'm
I'm not
drawing a
sure.
blank. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
It's all very
No, I know
exciting.
it's a palliative care organization for sure.
Yes, yeah.
They're also for people who are interested in palliative care, Tony Bossas, who's like one of the big researchers with psilocybin, he's been around doing that for 40 years. He's older than 40, but like he's been around doing it for 40 years. He's actually going to be launching clinical trials and clinical trials happen in all different states with palliative care patients, I think relatively soon. So on our website, you can go, there's a link for clinical trials, or you could just go to clinicaltrials.gov. But he's doing that specifically. And on our website, you can watch, there's like a link to psilocybin and spirituality in one of the drop downs about the different things we work on. And there's a talk by him at the End Well retreat or End Well conference that talks about this issue, specifically psilocybin and end of life, and the different research projects he's done and what the results are, which are phenomenal where it comes to tranquility in the face of mortality and terminal illness. So really important stuff. Yeah, and so our work is with him as well, but also I think people who are not terminally ill but have faced mortality in a very real way, which are cancer survivors, can also benefit from that medicine in similar ways. So yes, awesome guys.
Thank you for
Great.
that. I will check that out. Thank you.
Please do. Yeah, please look at our website for more information. We have a little kind of video that explains what we're doing and why on our homepage. And then applications will be live tomorrow afternoon. And there's a link in the header for applications, as well as more information about the retreat itself. So you don't have to remember everything I said tonight. It'll all be there too. So awesome, guys. Great. Thank you. Thank you. I can't, this is such a wonderful community to be a part of, and I'm so grateful that you invited me into it. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Anne, for your openness about your own experience and for creating this organization. I'm so excited about it. And thank you so much, Michelle, too, for your expertise. It was very kismet that all of this came together. Um, did anybody have any final questions at all? No? Actually, Anne, would you be okay if I shared your email address with the folks once I send out the
Yeah, it's
recording?
actually just info@survivorshipcollective.com, or Anne
Okay,
at that goes to our assistant, but or Anne at survivorshipcollective.com. So yeah, go for it. I'd love
great,
to hear from you guys.
great. Wonderful. Well, again, thank you all for taking some time out of your night to listen to Anne and about learn about psychedelics and this opportunity in the future. And yes, I'll be sending out a recording of this in the next couple of days. And feel free to share this information with the community. Each one of us probably knows a bunch of people that are interested in this as well. And feel free to, again, email Anne, email us if you have any questions. And yes, thank you so much, Anne, again.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
putting this
Bye. Have a good
together.
night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My